Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Keshanar Confidential. This is a series where we're taking a look behind the scenes at the making of the Kingdom of Keshanar, which is an upcoming D&D module that's based on ancient Egypt and asks the very important question, what if the gods, the magic, and the monsters were real? We've been talking to, a variety of people that have been working on the project, mostly on the creative side. And today we are going to take a hard left turn and we're going to talk to Miss Brooke, who is working in the marketing. Brooke, would you care to say hello and introduce yourself a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Brooke Baker Belk. I've been an accidental marketer for 15 years or so. Until this, as you said, very hard left turn in my marketing life, I was in marketing strategy first for software and technologies. So think big B2B, IBM, PayPal, things like that. And then most recently in pharmaceuticals and rare oncology drugs. About a year ago, we had some reorganization in my career, and I took this turn, and here we are doing something a whole lot more fun than that. Before I was an entirely accidental marketer, I studied English language and literature, specifically poetry, specifically Anglo-Saxon poetry, which, believe it or not, has a through line to how to be a good marketing copywriter. I promise. That is how I started my marketing career. Anglo-Saxon poetry. There's a story. I have a 4-year-old son and a wonderful husband, and we live in Durham, North Carolina.
Okay, well, I'm going to do my best to not make this solely just Lady X and Brooke sit around and talk about literature because one of my degrees is in literature also.
Oh, we can do that. We
Uh,
could do that for hours. I think they would love it. What do you think?
Absolutely. This is exactly what Dave wants from us. For those that don't know or don't remember, Dave is our CEO and has become something of a channel cryptid because every episode we're talking about Dave, the mysterious Dave.
He is mysterious.
All right. Well, so as you said, you did not come to this project, I guess organically is the word we're looking for here. How did you get involved?
There are a couple answers to that question. I'll take the linear one, the more linear one. So Dave is an old friend, and an old and very dear friend. And when Dave launched this project a year ago, and I was just watching my friend do this cool thing, and then as I was saying a little bit earlier, so my company was a CRO. We worked in clinical trials. Had some reorganization. My department had some reorganization. It was time to take another career look. And I went through the summer kind of looking at options and looking at options. And then Dave and I had a conversation this past August as he was gearing up to start progress toward our Kickstarter, which is happening in 1 week from today. But back in August was, a glimmer in the eye. He said, well, this is going and this is going and got this problem and this one. And I said, well, have you done this and this and this marketing thing? And he said, no. You think you could do it for me? And I thought, well, I was looking for something completely different. So let's see. And that's the short linear version of how it is that I ended up being a TTRPG marketer this past year. The longer version has something to do with many long years of dreaming about what a life by design is and how one goes about making one's geeky high school fantasies into the life that one gets to live and build and all those kinds of things, which are all conversations that Dave and I have had. But the short linear version is from last year to this year, full 180 in my career, and largely because my friend did this amazing thing and I wanted to kind of jump in and join.
I love that one of the most consistent threads of this project that runs the whole way through it is Dave literally asking someone, "Hey, can you do this?" So, you had never been to a gaming convention before last year.
That's right.
Well, that's quite a way to, enter that world is through GaryCon. What were your
Uh-huh.
first impressions?
Oh, wow. That's a question. There were many. One of them has to do strictly with the place, with the weather. I'm from the South in the United States. I love hot, humid weather, and it was very, very cold at GaryCon in Wisconsin, where I had never been actually to the state of Wisconsin. And so you have this sort of long anticipated arrival in the very cold weather, and then you get to the Grand Geneva, which is the resort establishment where in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where GaryCon holds the convention. And I walk in, and it's this sort of rush of both warm air and geekery. And I mean that as a very geeky science fiction and fantasy loving child who did nothing but stick her nose in a book for all of recess for all of elementary school and middle school and high school. Like that, that was me, and so you sort of open the doors from the cold, and then all of a sudden, here we all are. It's all those same kids, except all grown up in one place. It was really wild. I've been to a lot of different kinds of conventions. So the notion of the buzz of a con and the energy of a con and all of that was not new. Um, but the oh, these are my people, like all of them are my people, was a different sensation. And it was great. It was really, really great. Um, yeah, that would be the first impression. There were more, but the first of them was, "Oh my god, thank God, here are the geeks."
I love that. Oh, thank God, here are the geeks.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, you obviously went back this year also. You guys just got back from that convention again.
Yes.
What was it like? What was the difference from going purely as a spectator last year to now, there's a product that and having a much more active participation?
Interestingly, it was almost easier this year, and I'll tell you why. The notion of I have a product to market is a role that I'm more comfortably inhabit than that of gamer. So I am a lifelong geek. I am not a lifelong gamer. The first role playing I ever did was in the early 2000s with White Wolf products. I did a little bit of Vampire the Masquerade and a little bit of Werewolf. Um, and then there was about a 20-year gap. My first D&D campaign did not start until a year and a half ago. Um, and we play monthly at best. We try to play monthly. Let's put it that way. So I'm a very new role playing gamer. Actually, I've been role playing game adjacent for my entire life, but not a gamer. Certainly not. Couldn't fit that description at all until recently. If now, although Yumil would fuss at me for saying that. He says I've been to GaryCon twice. I'm a gamer. Um, yeah. So in a way, it was more comfortable this year because instead of gaming the entire time, I got to game some. I played one of our one shots, and Marks on our team DM'd that, and that was a blast because Marks and I have known each other since we were teenagers, and it was great to see him in his element. But I also got to do something I have been doing for 15 years straight, which is market things. So it was this weird sort of position of feeling slightly more at home this year because I had a role that I knew really, really well and also could game and have some fun, you know. I specifically this year we ended up with a booth thanks to again the quick work of our teammate Yamil. We weren't originally going to have one, and then someone dropped out, and we ended up with a booth in the hall. And that piece is really familiar. Manning a booth. Here's what we're about. Come talk to me. I want to tell you about Keshanar. Hey, you want a scarab token? I love that kind of thing. I love doing the meet and greet. So I had a couple of different comfortable roles this year that made it a more seamless experience, I think. There was a little bit of shock and awe last year, and this year I was a little more comfortable.
Now, you said that you got to participate in one of the one-shots this year at GaryCon from Keshanar,
Yes.
and that was your first time playing in the Keshanar setting?
Second.
Okay.
Only the second. I had done last year at my first GaryCon, and Dave's, at Keshanar's first GaryCon at all. Dave ran the Perfect Trap, which was our first one shot. It's about cats. Everyone loves cats. Who doesn't love cats? Right? I mean, some people don't love cats, but I'm not sure what's wrong with them. So, it was a blast. And this year's was it was Mark's wanting to run an L20 one shot, which is a very difficult task. And so everyone who signed up had to come with a pre-made L20 character. And it was dark. It was a dark storyline, and it was a 4-hour battle, basically. They were very, very different, these two. And they were at different timelines in the storyline of Keshanar also. So I could sort of see some of the lore tied together between these two one shots, which was fun.
Now, since we've had most of the people that have been on the previous episodes have been on the creative side of things, so they're much more familiar with, the setting and the lore, and it's always interesting to ask them, questions about it. But I'm actually kind of curious to hear from, almost not exactly an outsider, but close to an outsider's perspective on what was your first impression when you were playing the one shot?
This year's?
Sure.
Like the L20?
Yeah.
So that's a really good question. So there's two ways to answer that. One of them, I had never, as a relatively inexperienced role playing gamer, I've never played an L20 character, and I've certainly never been at a table full of people who have played L20 characters when I have not played an L20 character. And so my impression of the scenario of the game is sort of one answer to that, which was really fascinating watching the dynamics there. There were a couple of players who had come with their own pre-made characters that clearly were the character they took to every game, right? It was like, these are the characters they played. And then there were a couple of people, friends of ours actually, who had come to the con, one of whom was my goddaughter, of who I'm very proud. And they had made pre-made characters, and they knew Keshanar's world a little bit. So their characters sort of fit a little bit inside the storyline. And then there were a couple of people who didn't have pre-made characters, and we supplied them, right? So watching the dynamics at the table of people trying to figure out how to fit whatever they landed with their character into an Egyptian type setting was one sort of first impression, and watching people juggle that. But in terms of the world itself, the level of intricacy line is very important to the DMs in this game. Dave and Marks are the writers in this game. It's Dave's creation, and Marks is the primary writer and has come in to do that. And so the specific detail of, like, this is what the pharaoh was wearing, and here is what you can see exactly across this direction southeasternly in the city when you get up to the rooftop of the palace, and these are there's a lot of granular detail in the storyline, that's rich. And that was an impression. My third impression, I will say, was that I was very ill-equipped to do an L20 battle. Just not. I am not. And luckily, our aforementioned friends, including my oldest friend and his daughter, my goddaughter, were there, and they are both very, very, very experienced players. So they just sort of sat next to me, and they were like, "Okay, look, here, you could do this and this and this. Maybe you should do that now." Like, okay, that sounds good. It's cool. Sounds good. Isabella at one point said, "I have an alchemy pot." I was like, "Great. What's an alchemy pot?" They were like, "Uh-huh. That's okay, babe. It's fine. You'll learn." And so it was actually really quite a lot of fun. Um, yeah, I probably will not be trying to play an L20 character anytime soon. It just happened to be the one shot I had available on the schedule. But it was a lot of fun to try.
Every new player needs to have a gaming fairy godmother there with them at the table, honestly.
Uh-huh. The funny thing is, my gaming fairy godmother was my goddaughter, which I just love.
Mm.
It's fantastic.
I love that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You talking about coming into this as a newcomer and sitting at a table with more experienced gamers brings to mind something that's kind of been percolating at the back of a lot of the writers and developers' minds that are working on this. Because obviously, as you said, the setting is very extensive. There's a lot going on with it. And I know that we're very conscious of wanting to make it accessible to people that maybe they've never, you know, actually been involved with anything D&D before, but I mean, everyone has an ancient Egypt phase, and if they haven't had it, they're going to have it.
Truth.
So, as someone who, is not the most experienced, do you feel like it was still manageable?
Yes, definitely in terms of the setting and the storyline and the characters and the interactions. I mean, what made it manageable, and the thing that I am there for in D&D, people come for a lot of different reasons, right? What the thing that I'm there for is the story. I'm the story kid, right? I'm the I've got my nose in Tolkien when I'm 7 years old kid. That's me. Right. And so I think it's ultimately why I studied Anglo-Saxon literature, to tell you the truth, is that it called to me because it's what Tolkien had studied. It's part of where he based all of the richness that we now know as the fantasy genre on. It's that era of literature. It's what I was drawn to. And so that storyline hooks me. You know, I'm not I don't care as much about as some people do about the intricate mechanics of of the game, of like what my subclass is and whether I can do exactly this with these points and whether it's necessary. It's the structure of the game. It's necessary to know and do to play the game, but I'm there for the story. Um and so because of that, it yes, it was accessible because it's an intricate story. The richness in the tapestry of the story, the richness of the weave kept me there. And that was good to see for me because that's what we're hoping for. It's one of the things, that we're hoping for. And as a marketer of the product, that's a thing that I want to be able to say to people is like, hey, look, this incredible culture, this unbelievable span of time in which this, deeply heterogeneous, deeply diverse wellspring of, life, culture existed. That whole span of time, that rich history, we're drawing from it to create this beautifully inspired, intricate story for you. Here, go enjoy it. Like, take it, have fun, play in it. That's the point. That's the whole point. Um, and so it was nice to be able to experience the thing that I am hoping for as a marketer. Right? It was backup. It's like validation. Like, okay, good. This is exactly the thing that I want to tell people that it is. Fantastic. That's kind of how that game was for me. I guess it's a good thing I picked that one. It was literally the one game I played all weekend last weekend. So I'm glad it was that one.
I love what you said about the story aspect of it, because obviously that is, like you said, one of the main reasons why people are playing in a specific setting or a campaign or, what have you, is because they, are interested in the story.
Hmm.
And that's something that I really like about this project. And it feels horribly punny, and I'm gonna say it anyway, to say that it really is a massive sandbox
Yep.
to go play in.
That is horribly punny. You are right. It is also true.
Yep. I am sorry, not sorry.
You're not sorry. Don't lie.
Not a little bit. Um, to switch gears a little bit here, because I know that there's going to be people listening who maybe have had, dream the impossible dream or possible dream, as it may be, of, launching their own project and maybe making the leap to Kickstarter. For those people, what would you say has been the most surprising thing about marketing something like this?
There a couple things. The first thing that springs to mind um, was not necessarily a surprise, but it is more powerful than I would have been able to imagine because I hadn't experienced it yet. You must, in this community, be doing on the ground organic community engagement and community building marketing. You must. Must, 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 must. And as for a very small team, that's very difficult, right? That involves a human at the other end of the computer talking to other humans, answering the Facebook comments, you know, looking at the Reddit threads and being like, oh, I'm so glad you thought of us. That's cool. Like saying, oh, I hear you. Email this address if you have thoughts more about that, about people who have some issues. I mean, it takes that engagement. And that's true of any good marketing campaign, but for this community, it's imperative. It's not a, you can't skip it. It's a substrate. I have noticed that it has been easy for me to sort of cross my fingers at that part and be like, okay, we're on it. We're mostly on it. We got it. We're answering some things and not really manage it to the degree that I now know is imperative, right? Because in other domains, it's important, but it's not the substrate. At least the substrate here. You must do your community engagement well because it's a small, still-ish domain, right? I mean, 20 years ago, even 15 and 10 years ago, this was not a multi-billion-dollar market, right? We have exploded. Certainly since the movies started picking up things about D&D, but even in the last, 20 years, I didn't expect until Peter Jackson decided to start doing Tolkien on the big screen that my childhood geek passions would ever become multi-billion-dollar industries. I just never saw it coming, And so the last 20 years, 25 years now, I guess, oof, showing my age, has been this radical shift. And until that point, I mean, it was a tiny community relative to the size of something like what I'm used to, like pharmaceuticals or like, software technologies. I guess that was a long answer to a short question, but I would say that that you overlook that element of this kind of campaign at your peril in this community. People have to trust you and they have to believe in you and they have to have been spoken to by you in order to do that. Like by a human.
I really like what you said about community because that's something that we keep coming back to again and again and again on, every episode that we've done so far. And I know I say this a lot, but it's hardly surprising because, I mean, just by nature of the game itself, it is inclined to help someone build a community because you sit at a table, you get to know people.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right.
So for someone who is looking for a piece of advice, what would you say is the most important thing that someone who is wanting to get their project noticed should do beyond the community? Because we already know that. What would you say is the most important thing that someone could do?
To get a Kickstarter started?
Yeah, or just to get their, D&D adjacent TTRPG project noticed.
Get the right experts on your team. Talk to the experts and listen to them. Like talk to the people in your community who are doing this already, who have done it already. Do the best research you can by mining those people's brains about what has worked and what doesn't and what they know, and then listen to them, right? So we would not be in the position we're in without everyone on this team. Period. It's a small, scrappy company, and everyone is it's just an incredible contribution. The people that it was clear to me I most needed to be following the guidance of, particularly at this last year's con when we got the chance to actually spend time together in person and talk a lot, are the two members of our team, Ahmed Sufti and Yamil Camacho, who have been in the industry, right, for a chunk of time. And they are, contributors, editors, leaders in the project. And so me just being able to go, okay, please give me your wisdom. Tell me an hour's worth of all of the things that you know about this industry, right? And let me just listen to you and ingest all of that. It's imperative, right? And then in a slightly different direction, in terms of expertise, whatever your project is that you're trying to launch, if you have a project that requires expert validation, like we do, we're an international team, but the core team is American. And we are doing a project on Egypt. Like we are not from there, right? We don't live there. We have, studied a lot, but that's not the same thing. And so it's invaluable for us to have the expertise of Dr. Jill Waller on our team, the Egyptologist who has been advising us about how to say, this is true, this is not, here's the difference, here's how you frame that, right? Um, and the connections that she has graciously made for us within the Egyptology community. Fatma Ismail is one of those people who works with RC, which is one of the largest Egyptology nonprofits in the States, and they work with a lot of Egyptian national archaeology projects. Having those connections and being able to say, like, hey, we are not going to get this right if we don't listen to the experts. Hey, experts, what do you think? It's critical, and we're grateful for it. And so I think I would say those two things. If you have a project and it's just it doesn't require you PhD Egyptologist, great, you can skip that part. But listen to the industry experts, right? And find those people in your community and just mine them, data mine them, And if it does require somebody with an expertise in a field you don't have, go find that person, get some consultation.
Okay, well, that was an amazing answer.
It was probably kind of long, wasn't it?
No, we love long answers. Absolutely not. Can you imagine a podcast where it's just like, yes, no,
no, sure.
We would never.
You're not giving me good enough answers, Dave.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things about being on this project has been getting to know people that, as you said, are absolute experts in fields that I am absolutely not an expert in. I love having Dr. Jill because I have frequently longed in my life for, a hotline where I could just dial a scientist or an expert or something.
Right.
And now I have that.
Dial an expert.
Wish granted.
And, Dr. Jill and Dr. Fatma Ismail, her colleague, both of those people, I cannot overstate my gratitude to both of those people. I just can't, because it would not be appropriate or correct for us to do this project without them. It just wouldn't. It just wouldn't,
Absolutely.
And so, Dr. Jill will be providing commentary, on this, because this is a fantasy world. It's not Egypt. It's not ancient Egypt. It's not intended to be, but it is heavily inspired. But it's a fantasy D&D realm, right? And so where those two things intersect and how to comment on what is intersection of, and it is fantasy, but and then what is actual Egyptian lore, like that, having someone willing to dive in and do that level of commentary for us so that we can authentically say, hey, we're inspired by, and here's how. That it's imperative. It's everything, and we also had a blast at the con, I have to say. I was very excited. Dr. Jill came to the con at Gary Con, an Egyptologist in the house, and it was pretty epic. It was absolutely great. More people came by that booth and went, I heard you had an Egyptologist over here. It was wild.
Oh my gosh, yes. Take an Egyptologist into a den of geeks.
It was perfect.
And just let the word out.
It was amazing. There was this moment where another PhD historian whose specialty I have currently forgotten, but her name was Dr. Walter. And it was Dr. Waller and Dr. Walter, who were both PhD, history specialists of some, in some domain, just talking up a storm in the booth. We have a picture. It was great.
Oh my gosh.
It was fantastic. Take your Egyptologist to work day.
Okay, well, that's take your Egyptologist to work day. Okay, well, okay. I love everything about that. That's going to live rent-free in my head now for the rest of the evening, so thank you for that.
Whoops.
So having gotten, a solid taste of Keshanar now, and having been to two whole conventions.
Woohoo!
2 of them, ma'am. Have you caught the TTRPG bug?
Oh, it's bad, dude. Yeah, it's bad. No, I definitely went in and bid on 3 Kickstarters. I mean, pledged to rather 3 Kickstarters last night. Yeah, I was doing a little desk research and then it turned into like, "Ooh, I want that one and that other one. Ooh, and that other thing." It's a bug.
One of us. One of us.
Oh god. I'm telling you, I've been adjacent my entire life. I just never I mean, to be quite blunt, in the '90s, I was a girl in Geekland, and that usually meant you were by yourself on the playground with a book. And it tended to be the
Oh, yeah.
guys who had the D&D gaming group in middle school or the magic
Yep.
table, right? It tended to be the guys. And so and they were all my friends, but it's middle school and it's high school and it's that gender thing and I don't know, I just never got in there somehow. And I hear that experience a lot from women or from AFAB folks my age who had a similar sort of track and came to TTRPG much later despite early interest, which I find fascinating. I didn't know that that was a common experience until the last year or so and talking to people about it. But it apparently is.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That was very much my experience.
It definitely is.
Yeah. And not
I, much like you know, was a book
Mhm.
nerd. And then I came by gaming as I'm a big old video game
Nice.
nerd. My partner is the one who is definitely the TTRPG person in this house. But I remember, you know, at a young age, I had been fascinated by monster manuals
Uh,
because I love gross monsters, and the grosser the better. And it didn't, you know, become a thing in my life that, like, I can actually play in a campaign, I can do things, you know, because as you said, the space has really shifted in the past, you know, decade or however
very
long.
much. Very, very much so, and in a very good direction, you know? I mean,
Oh,
there have been a
absolutely.
lot of people out there who have wanted to co-create a story in this way. And it can only be a good thing to get more of them to the table, right? In the same way that it can only be a good thing to have more voices of different backgrounds heard out here in the real world, in the actual storyline we are co-creating together that we call this life. It can only be a good thing to have more voices in that from their own authentic experiences, right? It's true in the gaming world as well. I mean, I think that, you know, back to the L20 game that Marks ran this past GaryCon, I think one of the things that was so cool about that table, we had my goddaughter, who's a kiddo, right? Is 13. There were 3 women at that table. There were 2 people of color of some um, background, different backgrounds at that table. Um, there were people, you know, all of the 6 people at that table. There was a chunk of us from North Carolina, but everyone else was from scattered across the country. It was a really eclectic mix of folks, and it made for a great game. I mean, a great game.
That's beautiful.
It it was really something, and I didn't it's so funny because I didn't even clock it at first. We were just playing. It wasn't actually a thing that occurred to me until I was analyzing the game later, honestly, from a marketing perspective and going back and being like, "Okay, what worked? What lessons do I take? How did that go? How was our world perceived?" All of those kinds of things as I was analyzing it later outside of gameplay and being like, "Wow, that was a really different kind of group." It was wild and it was great. It was a great game.
Is the answer to world peace just to get everyone to sit down and play some D&D?
Yes. 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 Absolutely. I think I think we might also have to take them to somewhere where they have a really, really nice lake. Like, I don't know, like somewhere called Lake Geneva, perhaps. Just like take them to a resort town and have them play D&D. That'll do it. Not that I would, you know, not that I'm wishing that on Lake Geneva. Just kidding, mostly. But in all seriousness, if we took people out of their everyday worlds and put them somewhere pretty and said, "Great, go play D&D together for 5 hours. Let's see what happens." I think maybe we all just might get along a little bit better. I really do.
Okay, well, I'm gonna hard agree with that. So, since you are a self-admitted, you know, "Hi, my name is Brooke, and I'm a new TTRPG addict.
I'm absolutely self-admitted. That is true. None of those things is untrue.
As someone who also came to it a bit later, my piece of wisdom I would like to pass on to you is that you'll know you're getting in deep when you start collecting the dice.
Oh, no, that one happened last year. I walked away with 3 sets. One of them was liquid core. It's got beautiful little whirlpools of, like, aqua glitter. This year was a rose quartz set.
Oh, well, you're lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yep, yep,
That's it.
yep. No, it's over. I had 0 sets of dice a year and a half ago. 0. I think I'm on 9.
Oh my god. Okay.
It's
That's
bad.
you're doing pretty well. You're doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
real bad.
have you managed to snaffle a set of the liquid Eye of Apep dice that we're offering?
Oh, I wouldn't have walked away with one of those from our booth at all. That would have been inappropriate.
No, that would be wrong.
One of those wouldn't have traveled in my luggage because we were out of room in the other bag.
Mhm, mhm.
Nope, sure wouldn't have. Hypothetically, if I had come away with one of the beautiful sets of liquid core dice, I would say that they were really, really, really fun to roll, is what I would say, hypothetically. But I wouldn't have done that.
You don't know anything about it either, right? Like, I mean, if someone says
Nope.
something, they're clearly mistaken.
Mm-mm. They're mistaken. Can't speak to that. Nope. Didn't see it. Wasn't there.
Fantastic. Okay, well, this has been delightful as always. I do have one final question for you, and I warn everybody that these last questions are incredibly hard-hitting journalism, so I hope that you're ready.
I am girding my loins. Okay, here we go. Bring it on.
Okay. Is a Pop-Tart a ravioli?
Man, I thought you were gonna say our leggings pants.
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
And I was gonna go hard no.
Oh,
This
no,
one I
ma'am.
have to think about very, very, very carefully. Give me a second. Is a Pop-Tart no. Absolutely not. No, you never once put a Pop-Tart in water in any of the creation process of said Pop-Tart.
You know, you say that, but I knew someone in high school who
Uh-oh.
made the most outrageous snack combinations you have ever seen. I mean,
Uh-huh.
bless him because he did teach me the glory of making a sandwich out of 2 chocolate chip cookies and Cheetos in the middle. But he would
Was he pregnant at the time?
no,
Just asking.
but
No, out of curiosity
it wouldn't have
and
surprised me
experience.
either.
Nope.
He would toast a Pop-Tart to the point where it was like a shingle, I guess, is the best way to describe
Oh,
it.
God. Oh, Lord.
And then he would whack it on the counter so that it became Pop-Tart shrapnel and put it in a bowl with milk like cereal.
Okay. Then we can call it cereal.
Yeah.
But I still decry the Pop-Tart ravioli comparison. I cry foul. Pop-Tarts are not ravioli.
I think I'm gonna have to agree with you on that, actually.
It's my final word.
Okay.
Telling you. I know it just as well as I know TTRPGs. Oh, wait.
Can we add this to your resume? Brooke, self-described Pop-Tart expert.
Yes. 100%. Oh, God. Executive self-described Pop-Tart expert.
Yep.
I'm just gonna, like, put that in as my byline.
Yeah.
We'll forget the whole bit about
Yeah,
marketing.
absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, I feel like it's gonna get you some fantastic questions.
What flavor of Pop-Tart precisely was the best
Okay.
circa 1992?
Okay, well, now you're gonna start, like, an actual internet fight is what's going to happen.
I would love it. Bring it on in the comments. What flavor of Pop-Tart was the best circa 1992? Boom. Go.
Oh my gosh, our poor social media managers in the comments section that will happen.
Oh, no. I know. Well, that's us.
Oh, no.
Scrappy team and all.
Damn it,
So,
Brooke, what did
poor
you
us.
do?
Sorry. My bad.
Okay. Also, pour one out for the editor who's going to have to cobble this together in between all of the silliness.
That I will absolutely do. Thank you. Thank you, editor.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us and for providing a really interesting perspective that we haven't had before.
Well, thank you for doing this. It's been a delight. So thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. This has been Keshanar Confidential. Our guest today was Brooke. She is helping to run the marketing of this whole shebang. So if you run across us in the wild, make sure to thank Brooke for putting it out there. Join us next week. We'll be talking with another member of the creative team, and not to get anyone too excited, but I have heard rumors that we may, in fact, be roping in the the podcast cryptid Dave into sitting down and recording an episode with us.
Don't say it out loud. He might disappear.
If we say his name, he will not be summoned.
Exactly.
My name is Lady X. I am an uncouth bystander of set. The Kingdom of Keshanar Kickstarter is launching on April 8th, which seems incredibly close and not at all scary. For more information, we can be found across pretty much every social media platform, or you can head to our website, which is launch.keshanar.com. And I will see all of you next week.